a written production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Good morning. I call this Board of Directors meeting to order and ask that you rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our board meeting. I'm Kat Fimmel, President of the 2023 Board of Directors. This regular meeting of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Board of Directors is audio and video recorded by the RCSC management and staff. Please be advised that there is no recording of this meeting by any individual. Please take out your cell phones and electronic devices and turn them to the silent mode. I will try to remember at the end of the meeting to remind you to turn them back on. Our timekeeper for today is Director Collins. Management staff, Kevin McCurdy, the interim general manager. Morning. Chris Herring, Director of Operations. Mike Riprud, Director of Buildings and Infrastructure. Brian Duthu, Director of Golf and Grounds. Mike Diermeyer, Director of Bowling. Jolynn Higgins, Communications and RCSC Marketing Coordinator. Beth Lucas, Sun City Visitor Center and Marketing Manager. Marcia Johnson, the Corporate Executive Coordinator.
Good morning.
Teresa Serino up in the booth. I also would like to recognize Alan Kleinhans and Carly Young, our audiovisual engineers. I also want to take a moment to address the incredible staff that prepares this room for us for all of our meetings. I want to take a moment to welcome all RCSC members, especially those who are attending for the first time. Do we have anyone attending for the first time? Okay. The first item of business is the roll call vote of the voting members for quorum confirmation. Secretary Totten.
Thank you. President Fimmel.
Good morning.
Vice President McAdam.
Good morning.
Treasurer Fast.
Good morning.
Director Ruff.
Present.
Director Darbut.
Good morning.
Director Nichols.
Good morning.
Whoa.
Don't speak.
Director Nowakowski.
Here.
Director Collins.
Present.
And I'm here, Jean Totten, Secretary, all accounted for.
We have a quorum. First item of business is approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. That was the meeting of May 25th. Are there any corrections or additions or deletions to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will be accepted as written. Next up is the treasurer's report.
Yes, thank you. Okay, this is the June 29th, 2023 Treasurer's Report. The balance of unrestricted funds as of May 31st, 2023 was $22.1 million, which includes a $2.5 million cash reserve. Restricted funds include the PIF fund and the Capital Reserve Fund. As of May 31st, 2023, PIF had a balance of $31.1 million. The Capital Reserve Fund had a balance of $5.6 million at month end. The carry forward balance as of May 31st was $11.2 million. The corporation operated within its budget year-to-date in 2023.
Are there any questions on the treasurer's report? No questions or comments, and the treasurer's report will be accepted as written and placed for audit. Management report. Are there any questions or comments on the management report? Hearing no comments on the manager's report, it is accepted. Next up is the Recreation Center update by Interim General Manager McCurdy.
Good morning. Apologies in advance. I'm running two computers at the same time here, so. Okay, so let's start on slide 1. Finance. Year to date through the end of May, our net operating excess is $3.4 million and $660,000 favorable to budget. The year-to-date income is $11.7 million, which is $311,000 unfavorable to budget due to weather affecting golf revenue and lower assessment income from the delay in the increase of the assessment. Our operating expenses year-to-date are $7.9 million, $967,000 favorable to budget due to favorable variances in wages and the timing of project and equipment spending. Couple graphs showing resales and PIF collections year-to-date. The number of resales, which obviously generates PIF and transfer fees for us, was 756 through the end of May. Our annual budget this year for resales is 1,750. Year-to-date, 756. If we annualize that, we're on track to do roughly 1,800 resales against a budget of 1,750. Our PIF collections year-to-date are $3.3 million against a budget of $2.9 million. So we're about $400,000 favorable year-to-date with our PIF collections. Moving on to building and infrastructure. The B&I folks completed 365 work orders in May. 414 were opened in May. Average time to close a work order year-to-date is 11.2 days, and year-to-date, they've closed 1,847 work orders. Some notable projects that are currently underway: Clay Corner expansion at Marinette, which has a budget of $340,000. We've spent about $50K against that project, and that's ongoing. Softball field has a budget of $1 million. We just got in the bids for that project. Mike and his crew are going through those bids, and we'll have news within the next week or so on what those came in at. The relining of Viewpoint Lake is on track. Right now, we're looking at first week of August for completion of the relining project and starting to refill the lake, looking at late September to completely refill that lake. So that project is looking like it's on track for late September reopening of our lake. And the rec center, Mountain View, is obviously on hold pending the work of the SAC committee. Okay, moving on to golf. Golf year-to-date income was $4.2 million, favorable by $60K. Increased guest and tournament income was driving that, offsetting a shortfall in cardholder daily fees. Our year-to-date golf operating expenses were $2.4 million, which are favorable to budget by about $175,000. And our year-to-date operating excess for golf is $1.7 million, $224,000 favorable to budget. Okay, looking at golf rounds and golf revenue. Our rounds, this is a little bit of a tricky graph, I apologize for that. Basically, I'm showing side by side each month, comparing 22 to 23. So now watch this. Ooh, look at that. So month of January, I'm showing 2022 and then 2023. So you can see that drop off in the first quarter of rounds when you compare months, which is heavily weather related. We had a lot of cool, rainy weather in the January through March timeframe. We've reversed that trend. You can see in April and in May, our rounds have increased above the 2022 levels. Our revenue is about 117,000 less than this time of year last year, but it's 46K favorable to budget because we did budget for slightly fewer rounds this year. Okay, bowling. Year-to-date, bowling revenue is 473,000, favorable to budget by 47,000, primarily driven by increases in our open and league bowling. Our year-to-date operating expenses in bowling were 311K, 17K favorable to budget, and our year-to-date bowling operating excess was 135,000, 58,000 favorable to budget. If we look at rounds and revenue for bowling, again, comparing month to month in the first 5 months of the year, you can see that overall, every month so far this year, our bowling lines and revenue have increased over the same month in 2022. Okay, looking at operations, some notable accomplishments this month. We completed the Marinette pool chair restrapping. We have completed tennis court resurfacing at Bell, sealed and restriped the Lakeview parking lot. We are starting with our plan to open the Bell Pool and Fitness a little earlier in the summer. And we are planning to do the same at Marinette, starting as soon as we can find somebody to work that shift at Marinette on Sunday morning at 5 a.m. We're closing Mountain View Golf, but we're also scheduling resurfacing of the Sundial Mini Golf to start next week. Events and entertainment. We have our Ring That Bell event on July 4th here at, at Bell Center. That will be starting at 9 a.m. We are going to be starting the project to sand and reseal the auditorium floor here at Sundial. That will have an impact on some events that were scheduled in the month of August, but we're planning on doing a full sanding and resealing and plan to have that project complete by the end of August. And we're starting to plan for our winter concert series and Sun Bowl events as well. Communications and marketing, website activity, visits increased from 19,000 to about 23,000. 22% increase over last year. Our Facebook users are up to 4,200 with 68 new Facebook followers in the last 30 days. And our Sun City Visitors Center activity, 455 guests visited in the month of May, including 60 prospective home buyers. Karen.
Yeah, so I want to congratulate you on moving with such alacrity towards opening some of our centers earlier on Sunday mornings during the hot months of the year. I just want to check with something, though, because you just said that you were looking when the FA position is filled at opening Marinette at 5 a.m. Marinette normally opens at 6. Are you really planning to open it at 5?
The FA will have to be there a little early. So that's part of the tricky part of finding that position.
I see. So the center wouldn't be opening at 6?
Correct, 6 o'clock.
All right, at 5. It will be opening at 6. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Yes.
Can you drop back to slide number 5?
Sure. B&I?
Yeah, BNI.
Okay. Yes.
On the Marionette, I'm sorry, on the Mountain View.
Yep.
You show a budget of 2.7 million. It looks like,
Should that be 27? Did I screw that up?
yeah,
Yeah.
because it was 2 million from last year and 17 from, I think that's a bad number.
Okay, I'll fix that.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I have
Secretary Totten.
a comment question, I guess. Who determined which of the centers were going to try the early opening?
So that was arrived at looking at usage data and what centers saw the largest users coming in early on Sunday morning. So that was some work that Chris had done looking at the check-ins at the centers first thing Sunday morning and looking at the centers with the highest check-in volume that early in the morning.
Okay, so if a group thought that they would like to be included in opening early, what should they do?
They can reach out to me or Chris, and we'll obviously take a look at whether the usage would justify that opening.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Madam
Director
Chair.
Nowakowski.
Thank you for the colors and the graphs on the report. It makes
You're welcome.
reading them much, much easier.
appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I'd just like to thank you for the report. It's easy to read, and we appreciate that.
I do have another
Yes, Secretary
comment.
Totten.
It just bugs me, so I'm going to ask.
Fire away.
Thanks. In your report, I believe you talked about the softball,
Yep.
and I think I had a discussion with you about the fact that at one meeting earlier this year, I had asked the question when Mr. Koppes, the president of the softball team, club, they hadn't included some of the work that will be done in the future in their project. Did I state that correctly?
You talking specifically about lights?
Yes.
Okay. I know that that was looked at early on, but was eliminated from that due to cost.
Okay.
So,
But the cost is something that we could take care of. Is that correct?
if the board decided to allocate funds for that purpose, absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
But I believe the club is not responsive to that. Is that
Responsive to,
to waiting longer?
I'm sure they want the lighting. And, again, that would be an issue where if the board decided to increase the budget for that project, that would certainly be the board's purview to do that.
Okay.
But I think we were trying to work within the PIF budget that in late '21 was distributed. And I don't want to, I know that there is sensitivity to the word approval for that PIF budget, but that was for 2023. That was the number that was approved for that particular project.
It was $1 million?
Correct.
And where are we?
We just got the bids. We got 3 bids in for that project. Mike and B&I are in the process of reviewing those bids as we speak. So we'll be distributing the board packet next week with all of those numbers
Packet to us?
to the board,
With
to the big
those
commission,
numbers.
correct?
Okay.
Right.
And then, because I have to admit, I don't know anything about contracting, Mr. Whippert, would a bid that has already been, no, I'm sorry, everyone, give me a minute. Would it take that much longer to include the lighting into the project, that it would hold it up that many
I'll
more?
let the expert answer that one.
Thank you.
Madam President, Director Totten, I want to go back and modify what Kevin said about why the lighting wasn't part of the work. We talked about it last fall. GM Cook had concerns about neighborhood, introducing that to the neighborhood, the lighting overflow. And so we didn't really have a firm decision on whether to go or not. And I basically said, this is going to add substantial cost, but there was $1 million in the budget, so in theory, yeah. But we would have to slow down the project to upsize the service entry for the clubhouse that's on the drawing books and other things to get going with a lighting contractor. And I told Mr. Koppas of the softball club, we can do this, but we're gonna have to stop your project. And he was way more interested in getting the softball clubhouse and batting cage built, and agreed with us at that time that we could come back later and add in the lighting.
So coming back later, in a couple of years, that would be?
It could be a couple years, it could be 6 months after you construct it. It might not ever happen.
Is that going to disrupt what you just did in any manner?
No, it would have been more efficient had we known for sure we're putting in lighting. We could have put in more conduits, upsized the electrical. It would have added to the cost. But again, the decision was made in working with the softball club that we were not going to go down that road at this time, and we were going to move forward crisply on the clubhouse and batting cage.
And that
component.
$1 million, I think I heard you say it would have been covered under that?
Well, that was the thought, but that $1 million, where did that number come from? I don't know. Didn't come from me. I think what you'll find, I hate to give away the bad story, but the 3 bids we have on just the clubhouse and batting cage component is over $1 million, so we don't have enough money to build the project as it currently is designed and bid.
We have 3 bids.
3 bids, and they're all very close. So I have very good confidence that the market is telling us what this is going to cost, even though it seems like a small project, a 2,000 square foot clubhouse and a 500 square foot batting cage storage building. Wow. There's a lot of infrastructure involved. There's cameras. We have multi-card, security things that the operations wants that we at RCSC want to incorporate. Anyway, so we'll be coming back to you, but we're over the budget and we don't even have the lighting in it. So if you want to put lighting in, we can stop the drawing board right now because we haven't launched this. But I think you're going to need like $2 million or something along those lines to put lighting in also.
Okay, and
Excuse me for 1 second. Isn't that why they made the club made the decision? Because the club made this decision in conjunction with BNI.
Correct.
So these were the reasons why they wanted to hold off.
Right. Well, they were more interested in getting the primary component of their
Correct.
update built.
And that was the
yes.
decision they made at the time.
They agreed with it, yes. And I have emails from Mr. Koppas to that effect, yes.
And as it turns out, what you suspected at that time has actually come
true. Yes.
And so it was probably wise that that decision was made. The lights can always be
They could be added in later.
on. Might be more efficient if it could have been done now.
Correct.
Might be a little less expensive if it could be
Correct.
done now.
Absolutely.
But there was good cause to
Yep.
proceed as everyone proceeded.
Yep. Great summary. I agree with that.
I'm sorry, Secretary.
you
Todd.
mentioned that prior manager Cook, general manager Cook was concerned about the lighting in the neighborhood.
From a neighborhood perspective.
Have we ever considered doing a survey to find out if it would be a problem with the neighborhood?
Well, I think he mentioned that was something, since we tabled the lighting, no more further action was taken. But I think what it implied was if we do want to go down this road of putting in lighting, we want to get with the neighborhood. We want to have a open house or a forum or something to that effect, but nothing had been planned.
Okay, I just I'm not in agreement with efficiency versus whatever. If you're going to do it, to me, you should do it. And that's something I guess I'll have to discuss with my fellow board members.
Okay.
Your hand was up first. Okay. Who are we doing? Director Collins.
Yes. One part that I just find disturbing is that a club decides if we should take a little longer or save money down the road. I just think that that should have come back, something like that should come back to the board and say, if we do this, we can do this and it'll be cheaper because down the road we're going to spend more money. For a club, I don't know, is that general operating procedure? Clubs can
Well, you'll have to
dictate?
ask General Manager Cook that question.
I mean, to me, it just seems like that isn't a club's role to.
Operations was involved. Chris Herring's been working very closely. He's well aware. In fact, operations is driving some of the requirements and costs of this project, you know, because of the security and the multi-card electronic fob securities that we want at the facility. So we're working in conjunction with them.
The board at
Very
that
much so.
time, however, was well aware of what was going on.
Yeah, you can see the previous management reports. I don't know if we got into that this much detail, but primarily what I was doing was moving the drawing set forward and telling everybody, hey, this does not include the lighting. Are we good? Are we good? And it was finally said, yes, let's move forward with
I'm
that.
not so much talking about the lighting as plumbing it out through the side of the building with the conduit. Conduit isn't that expensive. And maybe the service panel update before we get to that point, but not actually putting in the light poles and running the power all the way out to the lights. They could be done at a later date, and that would be the biggest part of the cost, going from the building to the lights and the poles.
Yep.
I mean, the initial just plumbing it out and the service panel shouldn't have been that much more money.
Well, when we present to you the costs and the cost overrun situation we're in now, this would be a time where you could say, hey, let's do it all now. Let's take a pause and rebid the project with lighting included. And then I don't think the softball club will be very happy with that.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not talking about the poles or any of that.
No,
Just getting it plumbed outside of the building.
Even just to do the infrastructure for that would require a drawing update and back to the county and back to the rebid. All these steps would have to take place.
That's a little late now, but 6 months ago, it might have been feasible.
But six months ago, this was all well discussed. The conversation
Correct.
that we're having now was had back then.
Correct.
Now we seem to be wanting to do a little revisionist history.
Yeah.
This was all discussed thoroughly in an open forum. Mr. Koppes routinely commented on this matter.
Correct.
Am I remembering all that correctly?
Yeah.
Thank you. VP McAdam.
Yeah. So Mike, I just have a question about, I think you said that there were 2,000 square feet of clubhouse space and 500 square feet of batting cage storage for a total of 2,500 square feet.
It's a little bit less than that, but yes.
Okay,
in
even
round
less
figures.
than that, all right. And you're talking about bids that are coming in at over $1 million, and I'm just calculating what the cost per square foot is.
$500 a square foot.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear. For a fairly simple construction, we're looking at that
But-
being as,
And we can go through this with the bid commission. Commercial construction, commercial regulation, county approval. You have a supervisor on site for the whole month, for the whole build process, which 5 months is what all the bids were coming in, 5 to 7 months. So if you're building a 50,000 square foot building, you pay for their superintendent. If you're building a 2,000 square foot building, you're paying for their full-time superintendent. So that's what's driving the cost. It's the inefficiency of building a small project.
okay, thank you.
And, yes, Treasurer Fast.
I think, Mike, that what's being pointed out here is that the board needs to have a discussion on the approval as
Yeah, our
future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will present to you guys, the bid commission or the subset of you guys next week, the summary of the bids and our preferred vendor, and the costs that the other costs beyond the bid that we know of, and you'll have a bottom line number. It's going to be north of $1 million, and you can either fund it or tell us to go back or pause the project. It will be your decision, not mine.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And because the board, I think the board also needs to have a decision. I am not aware. I looked in the bylaws, I looked in the articles. I don't know if it's something that's always been done that way, but it seems to me that the board should have a tad more control over the clubs than the clubs having the final say. So that's probably a discussion I need, like I said, with my fellow board members.
Any other discussion? Thank you. We'll move on to the committee recommendations. Director Ruff.
Thank you, Madam President. I making a motion from the Insurance Committee. I move based on the Insurance Committee's and RCSC's recommendations to approve the 2023-2024 insurance renewal proposal for Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated, with the exception of flood coverage. The renewal proposal includes the same insurance coverages, carriers, and terms conditions per RCSC's expiring coverage, with an increase of 24.2%. Flood insurance is no longer included in the RCSC's property policy and must be purchased separately. Flood coverage is currently being quoted by RCSC's insurance broker, and RCSC will bind this coverage by the end of June. So we need to pass this in order to get our insurance in place for July 1st. And we'll also need a motion to pass on after the first reading.
There is only one reading. There's no second required.
Okay.
And is there any discussion before we vote?
Yes.
Director Collins.
I just have one question. It says that the flood insurance will bind this coverage by the end of June. Did we?
Director Collins, no, we have not. I got a bid to cover all of our facilities for flood insurance. That price tag came in at over $100,000, which is pretty steep. So I've asked the broker to go back and look at some ways that we can bring that number down by looking at deductible and coverage limits. We also have the option to cover some of our facilities, but not all of them. Some of the facilities that I would definitely want to cover would be Bell, Sundial, and Lakeview, just because we have previous experiences with water ingress into those facilities. So it may be that we want to cover certain facilities, but not all of them. But yes, we do need to get that done this week, and I'll be trying to get that bound by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Quick question. And my friends in the insurance agency, agent business, have said that insurance has gotten more and more and more expensive. Am I kind of reading this correctly, that our rates are going up by 24.2% and our coverage is going down because it no longer includes flood insurance, so the actual increase is higher than 24.2?
If we took the flood insurance as it was quoted, it would probably be north of 30% in total, okay, which is why I'm trying to knock that number down a bit. There's really, the main reason why our premiums overall are going up are driven by two things. It's our general liability policy, which went up 50%, and that's directly related to loss history. We've had an increase in our slip and fall claims at RCSC, and the other driver is workers' comp. And we've had an increase in the number of workers' comp claims that have been filed in the last year. And so those loss runs, those loss histories are driving a 50% increase in our general liability and over a 25% increase in our workers' comp insurance.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Madam President,
Yes, Director Ruff.
I don't understand why we don't need a second reading. Can you,
This is not a standard motion. There's no need for second reading. There's no need for a second, no need for second reading.
I thought all the committee
This is a committee recommendation. We either approve it or we don't approve it.
But we've always said second reading, some of the recommendations. That's why I was curious.
Well, that's what I said. It doesn't require a second. We haven't got through the first reading. Let's try that first. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So we're ready to vote on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, Secretary Taunton, will you please take the roll call vote?
Certainly, thank you. Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Darbit?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I, the Secretary, vote yes.
The first reading has been approved.
Madam President,
Yes, Director Collins.
waive the second. Motion to waive the second.
There's a motion on the table to waive the second reading.
I second.
There's a second.
Who seconded?
Any comments? Okay, Secretary Taunton, will you please take the roll call vote?
I know, thanks.
Thank you. Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Darbit?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I would just like to say that for the record, I typically will not vote on waivers for second, or on waivers, but because we have a time issue, I'll vote yes. It's 9 yes votes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved. Director Ruff, you have another motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move, based on the Insurance Committee's and RCSC's insurance broker's recommendation, the RCSC decline terrorism risk insurance. The terrorism-related coverage is optional for commercial property and casualty coverages except workers' compensation. Terrorism Risk Insurance Act was initially created by the federal government after the 9/11/2001 attack on American soil. The act allows the federal government to share monetary losses with insurers on commercial property and casualty losses due to a terrorist attack sponsored by foreign interests. For the TRIA coverage to apply, a terrorist event would have to be declared by the Secretary of State, which has not happened in the United States since this act was passed by Congress in 2002. RCSC has rejected TRIA on applicable coverages during the past several years.
Any comment or discussion?
I think it makes sense to not pay money for something that's very unlikely to happen.
Anyone else? Secretary Taunton, will you take the vote?
Thank you. Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Darbit?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 9 votes, yes.
I move to waive the second reading.
The motion to waive the second reading has been seconded. Any comments? Secretary Taunton, please take the vote.
Thank you. Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Darbit?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Second reading passes.
Motion has passed. Next item is unfinished business. The next item of business is a motion to bring back a motion that was tabled at the May 25th, 2023 board meeting. Director Ruff.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to bring the motion to amend bylaws, Article 4, titled Membership Meetings, Section 3, titled Membership Quorum, that was tabled at the May meeting, back from the table.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? Then we can go ahead and take the vote. Secretary Totten.
Thank you. Director Darbut?
Yes.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Nowakowski?
Yes.
Treasurer Fast?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, the motion is brought back for consideration. Director Ruff.
I move to amend bylaws Article 4, titled Membership Meetings, Section 3, titled Membership Quorum, as follows. A quorum for any membership meeting shall consist of not less than 500 members in good standing. Quorum is achieved by in-person or by proxy vote. Once a quorum has been established for any meeting, the quorum must be maintained to conduct business. If, however, such quorum shall not be present or represented at any meeting of the members entitled to vote at such meeting shall have the power to adjourn the meeting without notice other than announcement at the meeting.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Director Collins. Ms. Johnson, has anyone indicated they would like to speak on this motion?
Bill Pearson.
Bill Pearson, 133438. Before I start, listening to Denny Nichols respond is a little like listening to George Burns in the movie God. He's speaking down to us from somewhere up above. That aside, thank you for reintroducing this. When I was on the board 12 through 14, I tried to get my fellow board members to reduce it to 500. It went nowhere. In 2021, I introduced this motion at a membership meeting, the first in 12 years, by the way. We managed 1,400 and some people to show up, spectacular turnout, and we were told we couldn't vote. I actually took the time to write out Article 8 pieces of it from our Articles of Incorporation, but I don't want to read it. I don't care. Honestly, you guys figure out the documents, because that's your job. I do care about this. As a historian, as a Sun City historian, there's one thing that matters in this community, and that's that the members are the owners of the process of self-governance. The members are the owners of self-governance. You're elected. But ultimately, Sun City for 50 years was built on the premise that the board and the membership worked in concert with one another. There was never a time when we believed or were afraid of the membership. Because what we know is this: from the day we opened till today, those of us that live here love it here. We don't come to hurt Sun City. I don't care what you're going to hear from somebody else that's going to get up and say, a group of 100 could come up with 5,000 proxies and destroy. Nobody's going to destroy Sun City. We love it. This vote today of a 500-member quorum is on one thing and one thing only. Either you trust the membership or you don't. And if you don't, vote it down. But if you believe the membership are the owners and are responsible and accountable for our future, then vote and pass it. And I don't care what you set the proxies at. I don't care if it's at 10. We want one thing. We, you, me, management, butts in chairs. I sat through meetings for the better part of 5 years where 12 people showed up. There were more management people and board members by twice as there were members in the audience, because nobody cared or nobody came. People are coming, people are paying attention, people are listening because they care. We know With 4,000 plus surveys, we were told 400, 4,000 plus, 5,000, whatever the number was. We know the working group, the focus groups, they showed up. People love Sun City. They care and are committed. And if you pass this, we'll start turning this community around and return to our roots. You don't need to waive it. You don't need, have a second reading. In fact, if you waive this second reading, you're saying to the people, we don't care what you think. Because people, whether they want this for or against it, have the right to stand up and speak out. So 2 readings is the right way to go. Pass it if you believe that we are together in this process of self-governance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Schmidt.
Was there any, oh, here we go.
Right, did you say Linda Schmidt?
Yes, I did.
Okay, well then here she is. And addressing the RCSC, I guess I could point this out even though it sounds like it's doing its job. And board members, on the quorum, we have 37,693 residents, more or less, in Sun City, so almost 40,000. 500 people is 1.3% of that group. 1,200 people, 1,200 people, which is current, is 3.2%. So if you're talking about including all the members, or are you just including 500 of the 37,693 people who live in Sun City? So, not all Sun City residents know how to use computers. This is on the quorum here. Not all computer literate people that live in Sun City are signed up for RCSC emails. Is that correct? Yes. How many of the 37,693 Sun City residents are on the RCSC email list? How many have signed up for that? A few out of 37,693. How many residents actually filled out the survey form? 4,000 or 5,000? I don't know. You know. How are Sun City residents informed of board meetings? What's your method? My guess is that the Free Sun City Independent is read, if it is read, or the RC email list, if it's received, is informative. A small percentage of that 37,693 have those methods or use those methods. How is a resident informed of an important voting opportunity coming up? A better question would be how few Sun City residents actually know a vote will take place at a board meeting, and how would they know? I would like the board to consider direct mailing when a vote is planned to take place. It is inexpensive, and you already have the names and addresses of every Sun City resident. The board could use it as an informational tool. As an example, if a vote is coming up, list the issue, list the pros and cons, much as we do in regular voting, because in essence, you are our city managers. Is that true? You are our city, because Sun City is not really a city, it's an unincorporated area. So therefore, you become our city managers. List the issue, the pros and cons, and give the date and time of the vote. Direct mail could also be used to send ballots out to every Sun City resident. You would be putting out 37,693 ballots in the hands of every resident. To me, voting by mail would be far better than, say, letting people go out and round up proxy votes for their cause. Therefore, I recommend keeping the quorum at 1,200 for now, and at least try an informational direct mailing when you have a vote coming up. Because not every member, not all these 37,693 people are going to come to every board meeting. But if they knew there was an issue being voted on, they would be there for the quorum. Now, you people are very good at what you do. You have a big job. but you obviously need to do more information spreading to the residents. I just stumbled, and I've lived here for 11 years, and I guess I'm just uninformed, even though I'm computer literate, on the plans for the Mountain View. I didn't even know they were available. And here they are, a whole set of plans. Revision 1, $50,000 more to that $500,000 spent. Another revision and drawn out, another $50,000. Another revision drawn out, another $50,000. More people decided, more changes. Then somebody decided they were going to change the whole front of the building from the one side and take the whole complex and face it toward Mountain View. Another $200,000 added on to the building plans. I don't know if you people realize the building process. When you make one change in an architectural plan, it can affect multitudes. And yes, this is a little bit off the subject, but you're speaking much today about saving money. My mouth is really dry. I should have brought a bottle of water.
Yes, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to conclude your comments, please.
Okay, my conclusion is that on, just for information, just as they did in the ballpark, they took the lights out because they couldn't afford them. Why don't you consider just doing the recreation center in Mountain View? Just it, not changing the floor
Okay,
plan.
ma'am, you're off topic now and past
I
time,
am.
so I'm going to have to ask you to conclude.
Okay. But that would be something for you to consider. Instead of looking at the plans, everybody can go online, go to the Mountain View area and get the plans and see that
Okay, ma'am, we need to move on. Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Madam President, everyone has spoken that signed up.
Thank you very much. Do any of the directors have comments or discussion on this motion?
Madam President?
Yes. Who was that? It's Director Nichols. I was lost for a moment. Yes, we see you.
Okay. The motion as it's being presented is I'm very, very uncomfortable with. We have made the gathering of proxies somewhat simpler and allowed for gathering on RCSC property and what have you. And the only thing I would say is that I would like the quorums to stay the same and see how the proxies go. And I feel very strongly that if anything, we ought to let some of this, shall we say, we ought to get a little experience with it. And if, as the previous person had said, maybe the mailing idea is not totally out of our proportion. We spend a lot of money at the RCSC. I think we can afford to spend 60, 70 cents or whatever it happens to be per member to gather information of what their needs are. Thank you.
Director Ruff.
Thank you, Madam President. I support this completely, primarily because in 2021, we did not let the members vote on this 500 member, and that was not an appropriate thing to do. Secondly, I'm not worried about the 500. I'm not worried about the proxy because there's going to be steps involved. The members aren't going to be able to come in at that meeting and make a motion to change the bylaws without, so what we would recommend, the November 29th meeting, the proxies will be due for validation on November 20th, so we can validate that they have it. Material motions are due November 10th. Motions for bylaw changes would be due November 3rd, and if somebody wants to make a motion for articles of incorporation, it's due on October 13th. And those are according to our bylaws. So you can't come in and surprise us and bring a bunch of proxies. So if they come in with something that does not make sense to the board, that gives us time to look at it and go out to the membership and say, we don't agree with this. If you agree with it, vote for it. If you agree with us, then vote against it. But we have plenty of time, as Bill said, to let people know what's going on, vote as they shall, and I believe the members here are intelligent enough to get involved should somebody be trying some monkey business. They're not going to sneak in the door and pass something that nobody's seen before. If they do, it doesn't count because it didn't follow the rules of the road. Does that make sense to all of you? Raise the hands. Thank you.
Director Collins.
Thank you, Madam President. I was here in 2021 and I heard the people, and this is what they wanted. And for 2 years, we have stalled and did whatever, and they were not able to get this. So I have more than heard the people ask for this, and I am in total agreement with this. Our residents deserve this. Thank you.
Secretary Totten.
Yes, I just had a question, Director Ruff. Are you still leaving in the second paragraph of that section 3?
No.
May I read that?
You want to read something that isn't in the motion?
This one, I think she's on the wrong motion.
I don't think so. Hang on a second.
No, it's not. He is not talking.
That was passed.
Where?
Which? Article 4.
Give us a second.
Would it assist if Secretary Totten read the portion that she's interested in?
It's just,
There's a
it's just
second-
kind of a housekeeping.
Just a moment, Secretary Totten.
Yeah, it's a housekeeping issue.
Yeah, the second paragraph in that section says, once a quorum's been established for any meeting, appropriate business may be conducted and decided by a majority vote of members present unless otherwise required by laws of the state of Arizona. But that's a duplicative process because it's spoken to elsewhere as well.
Is that what you're asking about, Secretary Totten?
Yes, that was what I was asking about, and I'm sorry, I don't know where it's located elsewhere. I thought that would be an appropriate place, since you're talking about a quorum, to have it. And I was just curious as to whether it was staying in or not, because it wasn't listed along with the rest of the section. Thank you.
Did that answer the question, Director Ruff?
It answers the question, but I think she raised a good point. We probably should leave that in.
Okay.
So the motion will be just to change the first paragraph of section 3.
Would you please reread the motion?
I move to amend bylaws Article 4, titled Membership Meetings, Section 3, titled Membership Quorum as follows. And the change is only to the first paragraph of Section 3. A quorum for any membership meeting shall consist of not less than 500 members in good standing. Quorum is achieved by in-person or by proxy vote. Once a quorum has been established for any meeting, the quorum must be maintained to conduct business. If, however, such quorum shall not be present or represented at any meeting of the members entitled to vote at such meeting shall have the power to adjourn the meeting without notice other than announcement at the meeting.
And so that is the amendment we are voting on?
That's the amendment we're voting on, and
So are we adding something, or are we moving something?
there's the second paragraph would stay in place in section 3, which says, once a quorum has been established for any meeting, appropriate business may be conducted and decided by a majority vote of members present, unless otherwise required by the laws of the state of Arizona or articles.
Okay, I'm sorry to ask this, but I want a clarification. Are we amending what was originally discussed? And do we need to vote on adding or just keeping?
Personally, since I was just housekeeping, to be certain that that was still part of.
Okay, so the
I
motion
don't-
as just read is correct.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there more discussion?
No.
There does not seem to be more discussion. Let's go ahead and take the roll call vote. Secretary
That's
Totten.
me. Director Darbett.
Yes.
Director Nichols.
No.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Vice President McAdam.
Yes.
Director Ruff.
Yes.
Director Nowakowski.
Yes.
Treasurer Fast.
Yes.
President Fimmel.
Yes.
And I vote yes. 8 affirmative, 1 nay.
With a vote of 8-1, this motion passes its first reading. We will move on to the next motion. Do we have another motion?
Okay, I move to amend bylaws Article 4, titled Membership Meetings, Section 4, titled Membership Meeting Rules and Regulations as follows. Section 4, Membership Meeting Rules and Regulations, and the language I put in there, I've heard from a number of people, is confusing. So I'd like to replace it with the actual words from the Articles of Incorporation, Article 8, Paragraph 4. So instead of, I move to strike the proposals to amend, modify, revise, or revoke the bylaws for Articles of Incorporation, Article 8, Section 4, approved by the membership, are the final say on those proposals. And replace that with Article 8, Paragraph 4, the full language. The bylaws may be amended, modified, revised, or revoked by the directors or by the members. In the event of conflict concerning the bylaws as amended, modified, revised, or revoked by the directors, the action of the members shall prevail. I think that's very clear.
Madam President, may we take a short break?
Sure. We'll take a 10-minute break. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could return to your seats, please. Thank you. We'll return to our new business. First motion, Director Ruff.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to amend bylaws Article 4, titled Membership Meetings, Section 4, titled Membership Meeting Rules and Regulations as follows. Section 4, Membership Meeting Rules and Regulations. Robert's Rules of Order shall govern procedure at all meetings of the corporation, provided they are consistent with the laws of the state of Arizona and the corporate documents. Parliamentarian may be present at the discretion of the president. New language, second paragraph. Proposals to amend, modify, revise, or revoke the bylaws per Articles of Incorporation, Article 8, Section 4, approved by the membership, are the final say on those proposals. Third paragraph doesn't change. Proposals or matters relating to the conduct of the business affairs of the corporation, if brought before a membership meeting, shall be referred to the board for study. Such matters being solely within the powers delegated to the board in accordance with the laws of the state of Arizona and corporate documents will be considered only as a recommendation to the board. Fourth paragraph unchanged. If the disposition of these proposals or matters is determined by the board not to be in the best interest of the corporation, the board shall announce its decision and such proposal or matter shall not be considered further. The members may, by petition signed by at least 10% of the total membership of the corporation as of the first day of the preceding July, bring the proposal or matter before the membership for a majority vote of the members present at a duly called and noticed annual or special membership meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Darby. As maker of the motion, Mr. Ruff, would you like to speak on its behalf?
I would like to speak on this. The new language refers to the Articles of Incorporation, Article 8, Section 4. After having talked with a number of people that found confusion with my language, I would like to amend that.
Director Ruff, at this point, you're speaking on behalf
Okay.
of the motion as stated.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of the motion as stated, one of the things we did is I got a bylaws attorney to talk to and got reference to the material that we needed to make sure that this section reads correctly and how much power the members have, how much power the board has. What this recognizes is that in the Articles of Incorporation, it gives the members on bylaws changes the right to override the board's position on bylaws. In 2021, you weren't even allowed to vote, which wasn't right. You should have been able to vote, and if you had done the 500 quorum, then the board can't come back and change it without approval from the membership. So I'm just trying to make sure everyone understands what page we're on.
Okay. Before proceeding, I'll simply make a clarification that it was Corporation Council.
Yes.
Thank you. And by that, I mean for bylaws.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of any members who signed up to speak on this issue.
Betty Norcross? No. B.B. Beam? Madam President, no one's speaking.
As is their right.
Okay.
Okay. Do the directors have any discussion on this issue?
Madam President.
Director Collins.
I'm against this for one reason and one reason only. This is an article. We just cleaned out all our bylaws. We spent a whole year doing it, and now we're trying to put articles in the bylaws. The article specifically stated, and if we choose to violate the bylaws or the articles, then why wouldn't we violate the bylaws if that's what you're worried about? So it's in the articles. The articles precede this, and they are the rule. So I don't think we need it in the bylaws.
If you'll permit an observation, all of the efforts for the bylaws changes, those bylaws changes were not approved. The bylaws and the bylaws stand as they always have. There were no changes in mass to the bylaws. Those bylaws committees changes were never approved. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Director Ruff.
Thank you, Madam President. I think it needs to be in there because the average owner in this community generally looks at the bylaws and not at the Articles of Incorporation. And when they're reading this, it's very confusing, the third paragraph, if you don't understand that they have override potential over the bylaws. You would read this as the board can act on it as it wants to, and that's not the case. So putting that language in there clarifies it for anybody that's just reading the membership meeting rules and regulations for an annual meeting. They're highly unlikely to go to the Articles of Incorporation and find that if it's not something they've ever dealt with before. So to me, this is a clarifying matter. It's not mixing the articles of incorporation. It's making the bylaws more explicit as to what the rules are.
VP McAdam.
So Director Collins, I agree in principle with the idea that because it is in the Articles of Incorporation, there's no need for us to repeat it in the bylaws. And I understand Director Ruff's statement that not everybody reads all of our corporate documents. But I'd just like to point out that in very recent history, there was a board here that actually violated the Articles of Incorporation by claiming that this section of the bylaws gave them the power to not listen to the membership when it came to Articles of Incorporation or bylaw changes. For that reason, I think that recent history makes it incumbent upon us to actually do this minor duplication, not entirely necessary, but perhaps just clarifying for said purpose.
Madam President.
Secretary Totten.
I just want to agree with Vice President McAdam and also mention that I was confused until I read it and read it and read it. The second paragraph is talking about bylaws. The third paragraph is talking about business affairs. And this is what Director Ruff is trying to clear up.
Any other discussion?
I would like to make an amendment to this amendment to replace this language just by that paragraph from that section of it, rather than just referring to it, because I think it reads clearer. And
What are you changing?
the new language, I would.
Can I offer to read that
Yes,
language?
yes.
So the language from Article 8 of the Articles of Incorporation, Section 4, is as follows. The bylaws may be amended, modified, revised, or revoked by the directors or by the members. In the event of a conflict concerning the bylaws as amended, modified, revised, or revoked by the directors, the action of the members shall prevail.
Is that how this currently reads?
Yes, I would like to see that language in there.
Okay. So is there any discussion on the amendment to the motion?
Need a second.
I'm sorry. Is there a second to the amendment to the motion?
Jeff.
Director Darbit has seconded the motion. Any additional discussion on the amended motion? You would like her to reread that?
Revised motion to be reread?
The entire motion or
Just the portion.
just the portion? Okay.
I'll read it. Okay. Article 8, paragraph 4 of the Articles of Incorporation. The bylaws may be amended, modified, revised, or revoked by the directors or by the members. In the event of conflict concerning the bylaws as amended, modified, revised, or revoked by the directors, the action of the members shall prevail.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Secretary Totten, please take the roll call vote on the amendment.
Director Darbit,
Yes.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Director Collins,
Yes.
Vice President McAdam,
Yes.
Director Ruff,
Yes.
Director Nowakowski,
Yes.
Treasurer Fast,
Yes.
President Fimmel,
Yes.
and I vote yes. It's 9 votes yes. That's the amendment.
Is there any further discussion on the now revised motion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Director Nowakowski.
In terms of what that motion says, it's changed the wording completely from what was presented beforehand. Yes, it's in the articles, but it's not what was presented in our quote-unquote limited exposure of what we're going to be talking about. So my suggestion would be that this come back as a first read, as a new read, as a total new read, come back to us in September.
Are you,
I'm not changing anything. I'm saying it should come back because it is completely different from than what was presented to the public.
Madam President?
we just
I
presented
see what you're saying.
a motion to the public, so I'm not clear as to why you think that this hasn't been presented to the public. And are you making a motion of some kind?
No, I will not make a motion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this amended motion? Hearing none, I will ask the secretary to take the roll call vote.
Thank you. Vice President McAdam.
Yes.
Treasurer Fast.
Is this a first read?
It is a first read.
Yes.
Director Nichols.
Yes.
Director Nowakowski.
No.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Director Darbut.
Yes.
Director Ruff.
Yes.
President Fimmel.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 8-1.
With a vote of 8-1, the motion passes its first read. I believe that concludes our motions for today. Next up is announcements. VP McAdam.
Yes, so I actually have 3 announcements to make. One of those is that the Elections Committee would be delighted to find people who are interested in running for open board seats for the December 2023 election cycle. There are 4 open positions on the board for the term which begins on January 1st of 2024. Candidate packets are available at corporate offices for any member in good standing. There was a candidate information session that was attended by several people interested in pursuing this possibility, and it was videotaped and recorded and is posted for viewing if anybody would like to have a look at that. Otherwise, the candidate packets are due with the required 100 signatures at corporate offices on October 6th at noon. So that's number 1. Number 2 is something that was actually alluded to by my colleague, by Director Ruff, and that is that the Elections Committee, which is tasked with handling voting systems, was considering how to handle things at the annual membership meeting. And there is a little sheet that is available on the back table that looks like this. I just want to alert everybody to the fact that there is a typo on this. If you picked this up before we realized that there was a typo and changed it, the meeting is not on November 19th. That's not a Wednesday. It's on Wednesday, November 29th at 6 p.m. here in the Sundial Auditorium. And in an effort to make sure that members are advised well in advance of what the mechanics are for bringing business to this meeting, we are herewith making the following announcement, as Mr. Ruff referred to a little bit earlier. So we had to look at at what point proxies needed to be turned in for validation, how much time people needed in order to be able to collect proxies, and whether those proxies would be general or specific in nature. They can only be specific in nature if you know what the agenda is for the items that are going to be voted on. So with all those things in mind, the Elections Committee has made the following schedule, which will be adopted for this year's annual membership meeting. If any members are interested in bringing forward a change to the Articles of Incorporation, the posting deadline for that is Friday, October 13th at 12 noon. That will come up surprisingly quickly after our summer break. So we'll have a board meeting at the end of September, and then already on October 13th, any recommendations for changes there would need to be submitted to corporate offices. Secondly, a change to any board bylaws or policies. A motion to do that would need to be submitted by Friday, November 3rd. also at 12 noon. And then we have a category called other material motions. The reason we don't say all other motions is that motions to approve the minutes or to take a break or to adjourn the meeting are not included in any of these, but any other material motions, for instance, if somebody says, I think we should close the Sundial pool and put an ice hockey arena in there instead, that would be a material motion, and we would like to have advance notification of that as well, also so that proxy collectors know what they're collecting proxies for. The deadline for that posting would be Friday, November 10th at 12 noon. Then proxy vote submission, either general or specific, need to be submitted by Monday, November 20th at 12 noon. This will all go out in email blast. It will be posted in places where people can find that information. But there are little sheets of paper, if it interests you right now, to pick up just so that you are aware of what the process is for bringing forward business at the annual membership meeting.
Director McAdam?
Yes.
Won't that be a bylaw change?
No. There's no bylaw that's changed there. The bylaws require a certain amount of posting for changes to the articles or changes to the bylaws, and these dates all maintain the requirements, the restrictions that are in the bylaws for that. It's just in the past, in 2021, when we had asked the board, what will be the mechanisms for bringing forward business, there was no information forthcoming. And as a result, nobody knew, and it was difficult, and we don't want that to be repeated. And so we are simply saying this is the process that's in place. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact any of us about that. All right, and my third announcement is simply I want to make sure that everybody is aware of a pilot program that is taking place in Sun City right now that is called May Mobility. This is a program that is being sponsored right now by the AARP. It provides free transportation on kind of the same platform. You have an app on your phone and you call up a car and say, I would like to be picked up, and within 5 to 10 minutes, they will send a car for you that will drop you off at one of 8 different locations in Sun City. That's actually how I got here today. So you don't get picked up at your home yet, but I think that there is some, if this is a system, if this is a test project that is successful, and that will be determined by whether people use it or not, I just think it could be a tremendous benefit to our community in the future. And so I just want to make sure that everybody knows about it. There's a little flyer here if anybody wants to have a look at it. Downloading the app is a very simple thing to do, and I've used it a number of times now, and they always have a car at your location within 5 to 10 minutes of your calling. And furthermore, it's not truly an autonomous car. So the car is capable of driving autonomously, but they always will have a driver in the car as well, partially because these cars are to some degree equipped with ramps in the back for loading wheelchair passengers as well. So if you're scared by the thought of driving in a car or riding in a car that doesn't have a driver behind the steering wheel, that's not happening, at least not yet. But wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of this option, and encourage you to take active use of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer Fast.
Yes, I just wanted to announce that the Strategic Alternatives Committee will be meeting at the Sonoran Room. We were meeting at the Oakmont Building B, but Mike decided it needed a new roof. And so for safety purposes, we'll be meeting at the Sonoran Room. Now that's at the Grand Center. And it's in, I don't know which was building A and building B, but as you drive in, you go into the left where the Photo Guild and the Clay Club and whatnot is thing. The other thing I just want to note is because we had a place in the Oakmont Building B where people could drop off ideas, for what they wanted to see for the as strategic alternatives. If anyone has any of those ideas, we welcome them. And if you can give them to any co-chair, myself, co-chair McAdams, or co-chair Darbit. We will be having meetings starting this Friday to discuss specific alternatives. Finally, the Finance and Budget Committee is going to be meeting with management starting July 5th for parts to become more involved in the budget process. In the past, the Finance and Budget Committee had only met for 1 hour to review a presentation. Kevin and the Finance Budget Committee have agreed that it would be more beneficial to have earlier involvement. And so we will be starting up those meetings, which will be happening every other week starting July 5th. Thank you.
Director Fast, if I may ask, excuse me, Treasurer Fast, where are these meetings going to be located?
These meetings will be in the boardroom.
And the membership is welcome?
Yes, I think the membership is always welcome.
Well, just wanted to be sure.
Are there any other announcements?
Yes.
Secretary Totten.
Excuse me. I attended the SHOA board meeting the other day, and for those of you who may be new to the community and you have sent your $25 to SHOA to become a member of their organization, the resident orientation will be held on October 6th from 10 to 11:30 at Palm Brook. And they are up to 4,710 members, which really should be higher. Anyone who owns a single-family home in Sun City should make an attempt to join. They're there for us. The second thing, I just want to touch briefly on what Treasurer Fast said. Up until now, the SAC committee has been mostly run by the 3 co-chairs who have put a tremendous amount of time into presenting data and information for the committee to understand perhaps more of the process of what we and thoughts needed to go ahead with Mountain View. The tables are going to be turned on the next 2 or 3 Fridays. The committee will be making presentations, and they're anxious to do so. You're welcome to attend, although there is a limited amount of space. And as Treasurer Fast said, if any of you have any ideas that you would like them to bring forth, or you would like to bring forth, I think there's still room on the schedule for other people, members. So thank you.
Any other announcements?
Madam President?
Director
quick one.
Nowakowski.
July the 4th, our history of Sun City has always done a little ceremony at the Bell Center Bell, starting at 9 a.m., and feel free to attend. It's been going on for several years, and so everyone is welcome. 9 a.m. Bell Center on the 4th of July. Thank you.
And I understand that VP McAdam and Secretary Totten will be making, what would you say, not a presentation, but a reading. They'll be conducting a reading at the ceremony. Any other announcements? Then let me say that the next exchange meeting will be held on September 11th at 9 a.m. here in Sundial. The next Board of Directors meeting will be September 28th at 9 a.m. here at Sundial. And you've probably heard it enough, but one more time, the annual member meeting is scheduled for November 29th at 6 p.m. here in Sundial. There being no other business and without objection, this meeting is adjourned, please remember to turn your cell phones and electronic devices back on. Thank you for coming.
This is a copywritten production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.